Even by the time she could walk, 89-year-old Betty Blake remembers that she would have preferred to fly. When she turned 14, she began taking flying lessons, and her future was set shortly thereafter.
Amelia Earhart came to the islands to be the first woman to fly from the islands to Oakland, California, solo. And the night before she was to take off, she gave a talk at the University of Hawaii. I was the only kid in the auditorium, and they put me in the front row. And after the talk was over, all the adults had lined up to shake her hand and talk to her. She came right to me and asked me what I was doing there, invited me out to the airport the next day to watch her take off. It was exciting. I was really hooked then. I knew I was going to fly forever.
After a meeting like that, it was inevitable that she would become a WASP.
I was in the first class, and we had a choice of whether we wanted to tow targets, ferry airplanes from factories, or teach cadets and everything. And I decided I wanted to fly all those good new planes.
The WASPs in their first class and beyond were led by Jackie Cochran, a pioneer who was considered one of the most gifted racing pilots of her generation.
She said, "We don't just need women with lots of flying hours, we need women with guts."
Betty's friend and fellow WASP, Geri Nyman, remembers that first day well, primarily for a letter that Jackie Cochran read to the new recruits.
The letter was from the commanding officer of the Air Force, and it said, "We have been told we must give these women an opportunity to fly. We know they will never be able to fly our military aircraft. Get rid of them as soon as possible." They lined us all up, and they didn't have any military planes on the field at the time. They were expecting to get rid of us quick.
We were such an experiment, they called us the guinea pig class.
The WASPs began service right after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Over 1,000 young women pilots quit their jobs, left the safety of their homes and families to do their part for the war effort. The WASPs were stationed at 120 air bases across the country, flying more than 60 million miles, ferrying military planes from aircraft factories to military training bases.
Sometimes I flew 3 P-51s a week, about 8 hours flying time across the country. And then they'd ride an airline back, or else they'd send you up to Niagara Falls and you'd get a P-39 or 63 that went to Great Falls, Montana. And sometimes you left on an overnight trip and were gone 2 weeks before you got home.
They towed targets for live anti-aircraft artillery practice and live air-to-air gunnery practice. They instructed male pilots and flight-tested aircraft, sometimes having some close calls on those newly built planes.
None of the radio or anything was working in that particular aircraft. I was running out of gas. Landed there eventually, and there are 3 motorized vehicles there, all military, with guns trained on me. It turns out that I had landed at a Japanese internment camp.
Lee Doer was one of the lucky ones. She survived some close calls. But 38 WASP lost their lives while serving their country as military pilots. But the military refused to recognize them.
One girl was killed, and they wouldn't let her put a flag on the casket. And another girl was killed, and her mother put a big picture of her daughter on a window and said, Air Force pilot, and things all around that. They made her take it down.
The WASP were not considered official military. Families of those who died weren't even given a flag to drape their coffins with. They were also denied military benefits and honors.
It took 20 years before the first female flew for the Air Force, even after us.
Last year, President Obama awarded the WASP a Congressional Medal of Honor, something Betty, Geri, and Lee deserve and cherish.
It's such an exciting thing to do that it's worth anything you have to go through to get it. I only wish that I'd flown jets.
They blazed a trail for the women who fly jets today and for the ones who will fly them in the future.